All right. Thank you, everyone. I call this Committee of the Whole meeting to order at 1 p.m. Before we begin, are there any items to be added to the agenda? Seeing none, I'll move to adopt the agenda. Do I have the consensus to adopt the agenda? Perfect. Hopefully we all had time to look at the previous minutes. This was held on February 2nd, 2026. Are there any errors or omissions to be noted from those minutes? Perfect. We have full consent. And can I get a motion to accept those minutes? Thank you. And we now move to delegations. Today we are visited by the Olds Healthcare Fundraising Committee. They will be speaking to us on the 2026 strategic initiatives. Right now we have Barry McCurdy invited to join us. Thank you for your presentation. We may have some questions for you, but for right now, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council and CEO Brent, for the invitation to come and speak today. My name is Barry McCurdy. On behalf of the Olds Healthcare Fundraising Committee, I'm the chairperson of the committee. Have been for around 3 years now. Been a part of the committee since around 2016. Today we do have some of our committee members that I brought along with us. There are 11 committee members in total. We're all volunteers. We have one administrative coordinator as well. She looks after most of our business. The committee itself is overseen by the Wetaskiwin Health Foundation. John Strong, he looks after us there. He's got 6 other committees, mainly rural Alberta. I believe Sylvan Lake was the last one they adopted. What's happening is she works within the community, and she'll have a few words to say. She's a member of our to say she's Councillor Wilson's a member of our committee. It's good to see you, Darren. So our volunteer come all of life. Retired nurses, AHS employees, business professionals, entrepreneurs, retired finance professors, and of course myself, a real estate professional for the last 24 years or so, and working within the community in the area of Olds. It's not just what we do, but why we do it. The Olds Healthcare Committee, Fundraising Committee, is driven by a need to improve healthcare, particularly rural healthcare. We bridge the gap where AHS funding may not reach. We receive our funding through local donations. We ensure that 100% of all our funding that we receive in donations goes back into the community, into equipment, into schooling, education. We've set up our scholarships for the grade 12 students that are leaving the area as well, getting into healthcare. So we're here for the long term. We address needs not only at the Olds Hospital and Care Centre, but also support the Olds Fire Department, Recovery Alberta, Primary Care, the Olds Pregnancy Care Centre, Assisted Living. Through people like Brandy, she does a lot for us, and she'll be up here. She's exciting to listen to, so it's great. I'm not here to share information available that's on our website. Anyone can go on and have a look. We're also a Facebook page set up. The website's good to look at, and it explains exactly what we've been doing, what we've been purchasing. We purchase a lot of things that go into the hospital and back into the community. Our budget usually runs in the area of around $300,000 a year, plus or minus a little bit. In years, we've spent over $3 million back into the community. These are just volunteers doing this. I'd like everyone to be aware of that. We're not doing it for gain. We're doing it for our community, our area, and for healthcare and helping people within our area. Simply put, we want excellent patient care for you, for me, for our residents, and for anyone accessing healthcare services within our rural community. For example, numbers going into the emergency room. I don't have the exact numbers, but probably in the last year there's been 10 to 13,000 people go in to our hospital through the emergency room. It's a big number. Olds is an efficient hospital. It's busy. The other facets of healthcare within the community are busy. We're a busy place. We're a solid place. We look for excellent patient care for you, for the residents, for anyone accessing healthcare. If we can't support a dollar's worth of equipment that enables residents to receive care right here, rather than being referred out, we'll be seriously debating to investing that dollar. We scrutinize every dollar that we spend within the community, within the healthcare system around here. The 11 members of our committee, the Olds Healthcare Fundraising Committee, scrutinize every dollar. It's the money that's given to us that we must ensure gets put into the right place. Over the years, we've spent over $3 million on equipment, $600,000 on hospital beds in 2023-24. Televisions, just about over 60 televisions into the rooms at the hospital. Usually when we're in the hospital, it's not a good time, except if you're maybe in the birthing center. But it's not a good time, and to make it somewhat acceptable, somewhat comforting, is important. It means everything for somebody in there. We've all been in a hospital bed, and which way do we turn? It's very lonely. So we just need to make it a little bit more comfortable. The TVs do that. Free internet, free TVs in Olds, free channels. Also other things, airflow mattresses into acute care and long-term care. These relief pressure sores, they're forever changing, but they're basically an air mattress. The nurses love them, the caregivers love them, the patients love them. Ceiling lifts throughout the hospital. This year we're working on an additional 9 that should finish off the hospital. It comes at a cost of just about $100,000 to do the 9 by the time the engineering's done. But it's worth it. Everyone likes it. Vein finders recently, so that we have the ultimate vein finder now. It rolls around, you can point it at the arm, leg, illuminates the vein under the skin. The practitioner can work on it. Emergency pennants for the nurses, for example. Something seriously comes up, security, or they need help. We've recently purchased pennants. They can just press a button and they'll get help immediately from their coworkers within the hospital. Carbon monoxide monitors for the fire department, for the emergency room. When somebody gets carbon monoxide poisoning, it's sometimes a gas that stays within the system for a long time. And to be able to monitor that amount as it's reduced, as you're applying oxygen, is critical. Because you don't want to give too much oxygen, but you want to give enough. There's lots of things that we've done. Blanket finders for dialysis. Dialysis is a big thing on our radar in the next 4 years. 2030, we're hoping the new center will be here. It gives the community a great dialysis center. We have people that have to go to Calgary, Red Deer at this point 3 times a week. Be nice to eliminate that. So there's lots of things that we're doing. These initiatives are made possible through generous donor contributions, personal, corporate, and from contributions from the town of Olds in the past. We rely on your support, and we rely on it for years to come. We're here for years to come. We're assuring quality health care close to home for generations to come. We've set ourselves up that way. We have a great bunch in our committee. They all have a place, and they all do a great job. I'd like to thank every one of them that are here today for being part of the committee. I'm going to introduce now Brandy Antle to say a few words. She's been a member of our committee for the last couple of years, and she'll have a few things to say.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Brandy Antle, and I'm a registered nurse by profession, and I manage home and community care services in Olds. Donations don't fund what we have to provide. They fund what makes exceptional care possible beyond the basics. Not long ago, the foundation approached me in my role as nurse manager of home and community care and asked me a straightforward question. What do you need? At the time, I was already looking into a gap in our care, a lack of access to a bladder scanner. About a month later, I submitted my request. Here's why it mattered. We were regularly seeing clients experiencing urinary retention, but without a bladder scanner, we didn't have accurate objective data. That meant we couldn't effectively collaborate with local physicians to determine next steps. Too often, the default was sending clients to the emergency department. Something stressful for them, time-consuming for families, and costly to our system. With the foundation's support, that changed. Since receiving the bladder scanner, we now use it approximately twice a week. So that's over 100 times a year. Each use represents a client who can be assessed right here in the community, often avoiding a trip to the emergency department. When you look at a return on investment, it becomes very clear. Even if half of those assessments prevent an emergency visit, that's around 50 avoided visits annually. With the average emergency department visit costing between $500 and $1,500, that represents an estimated $25,000 to $75,000 in avoided healthcare costs every year. In practical terms, this means the bladder scanner paid for itself within the first 3 months. But more importantly, this isn't about just dollars. It prevents discomfort, it reduces anxiety, and keeps care where it belongs, close to home, in the community our clients trust. That same philosophy applies to another piece of equipment funded through donations, a treatment table. It may sound simple, but its impact has been significant. With this addition, we've been able to double the number of clients we see in our clinic. We've eliminated our wait list, and people are now assessed and treated in a timely manner. And that's what this is really all about. In Olds Home and Community Care, our goal is clear. We want people to get the care they need close to home. And thanks to donor support and your leadership in fostering a community that gives, we are making that happen every single day. I also want to be clear about something important. Donations don't fund what we already provide. They fund what makes exceptional care possible beyond the basics. They bridge the gap between standard service and exceptional service. They allow us to be proactive instead of reactive. They help reduce unnecessary hospital visits, and most importantly, they improve the experience and outcomes for the people we serve. So when you think about supporting healthcare initiative in Old, just know it's not about equipment. It's about dignity. It's about access. And it's about ensuring that people in our community can receive high quality care right where they live. So I would ask you as leaders in this community to continue championing and supporting initiatives like this, because the return isn't just financial, it's felt in the health, dignity, and independence of the people who call Olds home.
Thank you very much for that powerful message. Did we have any questions for the delegation? Councillor Glatz?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cook. Through you, I guess, to Mr. McCurdy or to Ms. Antle. Okay, so you've just mentioned now advocacy. So in your opinion, what can we as council do on the provincial advocacy front to continue and support the committee and the needs of the hospital? In the past, we did focus a bit on the dialysis unit and the expansion there. And of course, we will probably shift that focus a little bit to the surgical unit and the needs there and perhaps even acute care. But are there other things that we can do on the advocacy front that can assist your committee moving forward?
From your side, I'm not too familiar, but if I was looking for support from, well, we are from the town of Olds, and the mayor, council, CEO, is always put in a good word, relay on what we're doing. That's why we're here today. We need others to hear what we're doing. We need support financially when it comes to donations. And that comes from, may come from the town, may come from residents within the community, as well as outside the community in the rural area we look after. So just put in a good word for us. That's why we're here today, to explain some of the council I haven't met before, but to explain what we're doing. And feel free to go onto our website, familiarize yourself with what we're doing, because when we hear good job, it means a lot to us 11 people. It really does. And we're here for long term. We want your support, and we want to support the community in the area.
Any other questions?
Thank you,
Director
Deputy Mayor Kirk, and through you to Mr. McCurdy. During Randy's presentation, she mentioned that she made a request for a bladder scanner, and that's how she received her bladder scanner. How does it work with the hospital, and how do you decide what to buy for the hospital? Is it similar situation, or can you run us through how that works, please?
In the past, normally the donations would always come through the hospital. What I'm saying is we'd have 3 or 4 departments that people could donate to within the hospital, or just to general greatest needs within the hospital. We're finding donations are going out into the community as well now. People are saying anything within healthcare. I have $50, $100, $1,000, whatever. Anything within healthcare within the community. But if it's specifically said where it goes, we ensure it goes to that position, into that fund. It'll come through our committee, the Olds Healthcare Fundraising Committee, and it'll be put into a fund specifically just for the hospital. If they say, I'd like it to go to the hospital, I'd like it to go to acute care, I'd like it to go to emergency, or for example, we get folks that come to us and say, I'd like to donate for hospital beds. We'll ensure it just goes to hospital beds. Normally, most donations go through the hospital, and the hospital puts it through. Our committee goes up to Wetaskiwin Health Foundation, and they create the budget, and have all the numbers for us.
And then so the hospital decides what they would need the most out of that money and what they're going to spend it on?
We decide that.
You decide.
Councillor Overwater?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cook. Mr. McCurdy, so does the province know the existence of the Wetaskiwin Health Foundation? I'm sure they must. And do you get any money provided from them to that health foundation for you guys to divvy up amongst the 6 members of that Wetaskiwin Health Foundation?
Yeah, the province is aware of the Wetaskiwin Health Foundation. John Strong is a big advocate for getting what he can get within the province and into rural healthcare. I can't really answer that question because I don't know exactly how much they would get. There is some funding that's available, and it gets put through there and divvied up amongst. It's not very much so that we get down here. We rely more on our local funding.
You, Councillor Taylor?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cook, and 3 to Mr. McCurry. Thanks for all the work that you and your organization do. Now, what I've observed is that usually charities often represent some kind of hole or gap in our social service net, very similar to Councillor Blatt's point here. Is there any particular piece of legislation or change that could happen that would make it so that your organization is no longer needed, not because we don't want the assistance you provide, but because these things are being taken care of. Nurses are getting these bladder scanners when they need them. People do have TVs. Like, is there any specific thing that, in your opinion, would need to change for that to happen? Thanks.
We are seeing changes within the HS system in the last 3 years. Some big changes. We look at it as an opportunity. We're just community volunteers. we're not employed by AHS. So we're doing it from the goodness of our heart as volunteers. And we kind of seen a void in the system many years ago where it's okay to get down to this level, and healthcare is always provided. That's good. But then when the community is speaking back and saying maybe a little bit this way and that way, that's where we're focusing. And we're looking for paths that aren't being walked yet. We're always looking for that void. And with that void, it takes us right back. It's amazing how much stuff's out there that's getting overlooked. So we have the ability to fund equipment. We have the ability to help with education. We have the ability to go back into the community as 11 volunteers and put back into the community with the tools that we have from the funding that we get, mainly locally. We do see some bumps and bruises along the way as things change with with how AHS is being diversified. But that's an opportunity for us. It allowed us to come now where we were, say, more so into the hospital setting all the time. Now it's allowed us to go out into the community setting. We're not so restricted. We can get into the community now, listen, talk, and let people know that we're here. Whenever you see one of our faces or just through other means, we're here to listen, and we're here to give back, all of us.
I just want to add something. So I'll use the bladder scanner as an example. A bladder scanner is not a typical piece of equipment for a community setting. So you could go to the emergency department and have a bladder scan. So what that was able to do for the town of Olds is actually set a pretty big precedent throughout the central zone. So we were the first ones to get a bladder scanner in the community setting. Since then, all my colleagues, Lacombe, Red Deer, Sylvan Lake, have also asked for bladder scanners. So in terms of funding, the health authority does fund basic equipment in certain settings. Something like a bladder scanner is not considered basic equipment for a home and community care setting. We would have to go to the hospital to access that piece of equipment. So essentially, we've really enhanced the care of the clients or the people of the community by offering them a service that was not available before. So my registered nurses will take the bladder scanner into somebody's home who may be homebound and provide that diagnostic test, and then be able to liaise with the physician and offer a treatment that's catered to that person. So really the care is above and beyond what you would normally find in a baseline equipment setting. Does that contribute?
Supplemental?
Yeah, supplemental, yeah, thanks for that extra information. So it sounds like, if I'm understanding that correctly, you're kind of blazing that ground that AHS is kind of unwilling or maybe doesn't have the data to go, and you guys are achieving that data, getting it, and when you can prove the ROI 3 months on that bladder scanner, and that inspires other neighboring areas to look at that as a model. That's great, thanks.
Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you to Mr. McCurdy. Can you talk very, very briefly about the upcoming April event and the fundraising and where those funds are going to go to? Thank you.
April 18th, we're having an appreciation, not appreciation, but just an event that's going to go on. We're putting on at the Olds Alumni Center at the college. And we're going to have some entertainment and dinner. Tickets are $50. We'll have a silent auction going on. This is just to go out and have a good time. We've kept the costs low. Basically covers what we need to cover. Anyone that shows up is going to get some entertainment. It's 18th at the Olds Alumni Center. 5, 6 o'clock. You can go onto our website, get tickets if you want. There's quite a few still available. And we're looking forward to seeing people there April 18th.
Councillor Overwater?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cook. I'd like to make a motion that we thank I can't even talk today, I make the motion that the committee receives the Olds Healthcare Fundraising Committee report as presented, and I do look forward to seeing you on the 18th. I will be there.
Thank you, Councillor Overwater.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and appreciate giving us the time today. We're gonna pretty well clear out your seating here as we go. Thanks, you all.
We'll give them a second. And thank you, Councillor Overwater. Can we put that to a vote? And that is unanimous. Thank you. And now moving on to presentations. We have item 3.2, spring budget adjustments, and that's going to be presented by Director Linderman.
Thank you. I'll just wait. I have a presentation. Is that right there? Perfect. Can't see from here. Okay. So I'm going to jump right into it today. We'll first talk about our operating budget. So council approved our 2026 budget back in December at just over $37 million. Today we have just over $1.1 million in proposed adjustments that would bring our proposed budget to just over $38 million. The proposed operating adjustments for today, this is the expense side I'll go through first. So our first one up here is our regional phase 2. This is phase 2 of the regional multiplex study for $197,504. We next have our rural transit. This is a community transit service study to determine the most cost-effective transit model in Olds for $44,265. We have some adjustments to our salaries and benefits. This is a decrease to salaries and benefits of $72,000. This just comes from staffing and position changes that have been made in the first few months of the year. It also includes some changes that occurred to our benefits, which was an increase. The salaries portion was a decrease, so we're seeing a decrease of $72,000. Along with that is our training budget, which will decrease just under $2,000. This is directly linked to our salaries budget, so that is why we're seeing that decrease. The next adjustment I'm proposing is to reduce our salaries vacancies that we budget for. So we typically have a 2% vacancy that we budget for, knowing that we'll have unfulfilled positions. As council knows, in 2025, our salaries came in well above budget. And so in order to hopefully eliminate that for 2026, I'm proposing that we take that vacancy adjustment out for $181,916. The next adjustment on here is the Alberta Education Requisition. As I've mentioned previously, the Alberta government has increased their education tax again for 2026. This increase is $241,610 over what we had originally anticipated the increase to be. Next is an increase to our AVL. This is our automatic vehicle location system. This is an increase to our annual subscription and will include all town vehicles and equipment for just over $12,000. And then lastly, we have an increase in our economic development department. Our manager of economic development, Sandra Blythe, was able to secure 2 notable grants, which will include projects over the next 2 years. So it is a fairly large increase at $501,000, but there's also that corresponding increase to our revenues through those 2 grants and partnership funding. So next we'll look at how these increases will be funded. So the revenue side. Our first increase here is in the ATCO franchise fee. This was approved by council in January, I believe. So this will be effective April 1st and will result in an increase of approximately $115,000 in 2026. The next is to cover that regional phase 2. It is 100% grant funded through an ACP grant. and as well as the Rural Transit Grant, again, 100% grant funded. The ACFF, our education tax requisition, is funded through property taxes. And then again, that increase to economic development was those 2 grants. And then we have an increase to our building permit revenue of $55,000. So the last item on here shows that with all of these increases in funding, we will be able to decrease our tax revenue by $57,469. Are there any questions on those adjustments before I get into the tax revenue a bit more?
Councillor Overwater?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cook. The Rural Transit Solutions Study. I'm really struggling with this because at the end of the day, we've done different studies on this rural transit as to how we don't have transportation in town. We never seem to get any money towards that from the provincial government to help us get a transit system in our community, and it doesn't seem like that is going to be a possibility at any given time in the near future. So I'm just wondering why we're going to spend that much more money on doing that study when at the end of the day, I mean, not unless we're going to put a motion at AB Munis in the fall to really pursue that, to push it, I don't see spending $44,000 on that.
CEO Williams?
Yes, and through you, Mr. Chair, I'll take this question on behalf of Director Lapointe, who's away this week. So this, it's $50,000 in revenue was achieved through the federal government's Rural Transit Solutions Fund through a grant. So it is 100% grant funded. Now, federal budget approval pending. The logic here is that this grant will do kind of a phase 1 assessment of, in the current situation and into a 5 to 10 year time frame, what should transit look like in Olds? The demand largely in relation to an aging population and how our community is going to grow. There is a phase 2, a separate stream for the Rural Transit Solutions Fund. That is a capital stream. And that is where, if you follow the news, I believe most recently, the city of Red Deer, I believe, accessed quite a lot of money in the millions of dollars to purchase new busing. So there's right now the operating component, which is 100% grant funded, that we'll study. And if it shows that we could use a increased transit system or infrastructure, if council agrees, then we would apply to the second phase of the Rural Transit Solutions Fund for the capital purchases.
Thank you. Director Lindeman, can you continue? Oh, sorry. Mayor Daley?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cook. Through you to Director Lindeman. The ATCO franchise fees. I know we've applied for them through the Utilities Commission. Have we heard back? Was it approved and everything? And if so, and I don't mean to spring this on you, you could bring this information back later on, but what is going to be the impact to the average household here in Olds with the impact of the increase in franchise fees?
As for the increase, I'd have to look back at the previous RFD that I had put forward, so I can get that to you at the end of this. And yes, everything was submitted to ECHO, and it will be effective April 1st.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Overwater?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cook. Regarding the vacancy adjustment of $181,916, so are we saying, like we're always saying we're short on staff, so does that mean we're not going to be trying to fill those positions at all for the rest of this year? Or what does that mean?
No changes will be made to actually filling positions. We're just not going to count on those positions not being filled. So that's what we were doing previously. So say you had, just easy numbers, $1 million in salaries. We were saying we're going to be short-staffed for a portion of the year, so we're going to lower our budget for salaries to 800,000 as opposed to budgeting the full 1 million. We're taking that out now. We are budgeting the full amount of salaries. So in hopes of filling those positions as immediately as you can.
Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through you to the Director. And I have about 15 questions. I'll just take them one at a time. So just further to Councillor Overwater's question around the vacant, and just to make sure, because I think I'm still on a chocolate high from the weekend. So we removed the 181 as a reduction from the budget, not for incremental positions, but to fill existing positions that are vacant, that are in our complement, that are in our staff count. We're going to look to fill those, not add positions, correct?
Correct. We are just now funding 100% of our salaries expense.
Supplemental?
No, but question 2. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you to the Director. Just further to the franchise fee discussion. I know when you gave the update to council end of January, February of the 2025 year, and it basically happens every year, franchise fees always seem to have a little bit of a quirk, what I'll call a bust to them, where we budget at one level, and lately anyway, the last couple of years, our franchise fees have been lower. So now we're budgeting higher, partly related to the higher ADCO fee, but are there any cautions there that administration has as far as relying on whether it's the ADCO fee or the Fortis fee, and the vulnerability, I guess, that the town would have being exposed to those fees and the fluctuation? Thank you.
Yes, definitely. As we've seen, and I've reported back to council that our franchise fees have not come in at budget the last couple of years, particularly Fortis, and that we have related back to the loss of Sundial, obviously, with that large plant. ATCO and Fortis do provide us with the budget numbers that we use, and so they go back through and use historical requisitions to let us know what we should be budgeting. But yes, we are open. There is risk there, for sure. Okay, so moving on, I just wanted to quickly touch on tax revenue, because as we know, that is a significant portion of our budget. So the tax revenue required with the adjustments that I have presented today would be 5%. The original proposed budget in December was at 5.5%, so it has come down 0.5%. I just wanted to highlight, we do have the tax stabilization reserve as well, that we have $342,000 in. We have already budgeted to use 60,000 of that in the 2026 budget. Quickly touching on assessments. Assessments have increased again this year. We have received our finalized assessments. Overall, assessment has increased 10.16%. Single-family residential is 10.4% increase, and commercial is up by 9%. So with these numbers, when you only need 5% revenue, assessments are up 10, our rates will go down in order to achieve that 5%. Again, that's just to make it a zero budget. I will be presenting scenarios to council on April 13th council meeting. That is when we'll have first reading of our tax rate bylaw. Any questions on tax revenue or assessments?
Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cook, and through you to Director Linderman. So the 10.4% increase to single-family residential, is that a decrease from the assessment values of last year, or is that an actual increase above what they did? Because I thought our assessments on single-family dwellings last year was a little bit higher than 10%. Am I misguided there?
No, last year they did go up. I don't know off the top of my head, but it was more than 10%. But this is year-over-year increase of 10.4. Yes.
No, thank you. I just kind of wanted that little bit of clarification. Thanks.
Yeah.
Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you to the Director. And sorry, I'm going to take you, if I'm allowed, take you back to the expense. I've found my other questions. Just back to the vacancy, hypothetical, I guess, speculating, spitballing. So we're saying we're going to up our complement to budgeted positions and therefore release that 181 that we've been holding or used as a reduction. Is it an option, though, I guess it is, for 2026 to run thin, as we have been for some time on manpower, and reuse those $181,000 elsewhere, perhaps snow removal or pavement and pathway repair and maintenance, or am I just totally confused? Thank you.
I'll take that one again. And through the chair. So with the salary vacancy amount we're taking out, it wasn't directly budgeted. It was something we brought to council as part of the broader revenue expense package, that we think that over our X amount of million salary benefits budget, we're going to have a staff vacancy built in. So it's was a way for us to lower the amount required from tax revenue. But we've seen in most recently 2025, we had a conversation about it earlier this year, our salary and benefits budget exceeded our expense targets. So to answer your question, yes, you could allocate that any ways you wish. It is council's budget. But on the back end, when this time next year, when we're looking at 2026's end of year financials, you're probably going to have the exact same issue we have here. What's not in detail yet, things that are causing the exceedance that you saw in 2025. It comes into this vacancy rate that we're filling positions faster, and with in the demographics of the workforce, we're doing succession planning a bit differently. So let's say when someone retires or is announced their retirement, we try to bring someone in earlier to job shadow that person. But we haven't budgeted for that double upping in salary, so that has an effect as well. So as we fill positions faster and we see succession planning playing out in a more proactive way, we don't think this vacancy budget is accurate enough anymore. So we're comfortable doing away with it. Some other factors in there too that we have to get a better handle on is overtime. They're somewhat difficult to capture when you have a winter like this, because we tend not to budget directly for overtime and try to control it administratively. But when it snows, for example, it reaches activation levels in council's policy, we have to go. Snowing a Friday at 4 p.m. seems to be a common occurrence for some reason, though, in Alberta. With our water main breaks, you've seen plenty of those. Generally, we incur overtime for each one of those that we have to repair or remedy. On call, we've increased, I believe this was more of a late 2024 decision, we've increased our on-call complement across basically the entire organization, from the sportsplex to parks to public works to utilities, that we have people on call to man the phones after hours, on weekends, on Christmas Day. And employment standards, you have to pay those people. Even if they're sitting at home, it is a marginal sum. I believe it's around $75 a day if I had to ballpark it. We don't necessarily capture that yet in our salaries budget. Before, we relied on a combination of, we're not going to fill positions that quickly. That should balance off our overtime expenses. So this is one step towards getting a more accurate and hopefully end of year, better result at the end of the year.
Question 4.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Truly a supplemental. Thank you for the answer. Just wondering, any high-level thoughts from the CAO relative to, I know when Director Lindeman presented the 2025 numbers, and I think you alluded to it a little bit, benefit cost pressures. It's been, I think, 2+ years since we transitioned our benefit coverage and everything. Are there plans to relook at that? Can you reveal anything, or it's on the long list of everything else to look at as a cost pressure? Thank you.
Yeah, and through the chair, a good question. Our benefits did come in, I believe, 1% lower than our projected increase, but still a substantial increase. We will go to market right now, loosely a 3-year cycle, more or less. Right now, we're still locked into a partial introductory rate. I believe it's in our long-term disability premiums. And across the board, outside of people using benefits and the workforce getting older and new drugs coming on the market and being more expensive. It's not my forte to explain that to you, but we're also seeing significant utilization in short-term and long-term disability across the sector. We're pretty fortunate in the organization itself that we don't have a significant amount of those claims, but the economy, society dictates what you're going to pay for short-term and long-term disability. So that is what's going to, I think, be the impetus to go back to market in a year's time to see if there's better plans out there. And by shopping around on the long-term, short-term fees that are paid, we generally try to get the similar or better deal on the medical, dental side of things. But just like when you sign up to a credit card company or a new electricity provider, sometimes they give you a free TV for signing up, or they have a lower introductory rate. We get caught with that as well, that, for 2 years we'll give you, this teaser rate, and in 2 years it's going to go back to market, so to speak. So, and it's a combination of factors. But to your question, which I could have answered just by saying these next 10 words, yes, we will go back to market next year.
Mayor Daley?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cook. Through you to Director Linderman, you did mention the stabilization reserve up there, and that 60,000 was going to come out of that to help us with the bottom line. In our previous talks, we talked about our condition or our level of reserves that we do have. How is this going to impact the reserves? Is this a true drawdown of $60,000 out of that reserve? And or is there any other of the reserves that are going to get impacted by this budget here adjustment?
So in the budget, it is a true drawdown from the tax stabilization reserve in order to balance. At this time, though, it's not until you're done your year end that you know whether or not you actually need that. So if we end up the year with a surplus, then we wouldn't take that 60,000. And so in the past, we have budgeted to draw from that tax stabilization reserve. We have yet to actually have to do that. So that's it. Yeah.
That's good news.
Yeah. It depends how you end the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Good to carry on. All right. Okay. So we will move on to capital now. I didn't have an overall slide here, but the total capital adjustments being presented today are $1,176,780. This would bring our total capital budget to just over $4 million. So on this first slide here, I have the carry forward. So these are projects that were approved in the 2025 budget that were not completed by the end of the year and are being brought forward into 2026. This is a total of $222,000 and includes the roof replacement at the East Shop, 67A design construction, fire hydrant replacement program, the Rotary Athletic scoreboard, and the roof replacement at the Evergreen. The next slide is proposed new capital projects for this budget. So that is a total of $954,780. And these projects are the HVAC at the Municipal Center, so this building, for $40,000. The proposed funding for this budget item is the LGFF funding. The next item is the men's shed renovations. This is a project that has already been started, is almost complete. It just missed being put in the budget previously. It is funded primarily through a grant and then through Mountain View Power at $249,780. The next is an increase to our municipal improvement program. Municipal improvement program for $400,000, and this is coming from reserves. Director Pedro can speak to that after. Next, we have a new program, 57th Avenue intersection improvement design. This is $100,000 and also coming from reserves. We have an increase to the electrical upgrades at the Sportsplex for $45,000, and this is being funded through the LGFF program, Mountain View County, and the Curling Club. And then we have the brine headers at the Sportsplex, which was identified as needing to be done in 2026 of $120,000, and again through LGFF, Mountain View County, and the Curling Club. If you have any specific questions to these projects, we can take those now.
Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cook, and through you to perhaps Director Linderman or maybe CEO Williams. I'd like some more clarity around the HVAC expense, given that we've just recently renovated this building. If I could have some, please.
Thanks for the question, and through the chair, very astute observation indeed. So this HVAC expense is actually for the existing unit that cools the downstairs, and in theory is supposed to cool this room, in theory. We didn't, upon inspection of the downstairs HVAC units, there were some heat coils either malfunctioning or missing in the downstairs offices. That dates back to the 2020, 2021 construction and opening of the office. So we believe the issues we're experiencing across the board with temperature management is because those heat coils are either damaged or missing. So that expense is on the, not on the new unit, which was installed in 2025, but on the existing HVAC system from 2020.
Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And through you, perhaps to Director Pedro, just looking for a little bit of more clarity around the MIP. If I remember, it was Municipal Improvement Program, but what that entails, that's critical must-dos. And I'm thinking in the context as well of, we've talked in the past, and I think a little bit today, about reserve neutrality, but the Director Linderman alluded to, we're going to have to dip into reserves to fund some of this. So just wondering again, the criticality, the necessity, and then if we don't do reserves, how would we fund it? And I shudder to think what that answer would be. Thank you.
I'll just jump in really quick. I forgot to go over this slide on our reserve neutrality for capital. So this shows our capital reserve transfers for 2026. So currently we have budgeted 2 reserves. So we budget annually our a portion of amortization to come from operating to go into our capital reserves for asset replacement and rehabilitation. So that we budget $462,830 on the far right-hand side there. Just in the last couple weeks, we had land sales that we had a motion to transfer 2 reserves of $294,412. This proposed capital budget will see a reduction in reserves of $732,000. This would leave us with a total going into reserves of $25,000. So we would not have a drawdown of our total reserves. It would be an increase to our reserves of $25,000.
Councillor Overwater?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cook. Oh, sorry. You called me.
Yep.
It's all good. I didn't get a chance to answer my question. So through the chair, very good question. In terms of criticality of that project, the sanitary sewer on that segment of 57th Avenue is literally collapsing. So we're talking catastrophic failure for the upstream area that's serviced by that sanitary sewer. Now it is a relatively small area, but it is, off the top of my head, I think it's about 50 properties that are serviced by that line. So it's not by any means, an entire quadrant of the town, but it is in desperate need of replacement. So with that replacement, we do obviously have to look at the adjacent infrastructure, the roads, concrete, in this case, closing off the service road as per the functional plan. So all of that is factored in. But the primary impetus for the project is the sanitary.
Councillor Overwater?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cook. Can you just refresh my memory on what we're doing with the 54 and 57 intersection? Can you refresh my memory on that, please?
Absolutely. So because of the future expected development in Miller Meadows, we are looking at potential improvements for 54th and 57th. Current conditions suggest that it's already what we call failing on the engineering side, so it's not appropriate for the traffic volumes and traffic composition that it sees. And so this study would strictly look at what the current volumes are, what projected volumes are going to be, and what the ideal upgrade for that intersection would be, just in preparation for future construction.
Theo Williams?
Yeah, and just to add to that as well, it's something council considered a couple of years ago, but now that we have not just Miller Meadows that we believe will be a short-term start to that development, we have the Larchwoods development, which should be kicking off this month, their civil construction, and other to-be-determined developments in that quadrant. So a lot more pressure will be on that four-way stop. So essentially, the study will determine if a four-way stop is the best solution, or if we look towards something like signalization for intersection improvements there.
Councillor Overwater?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cook. And I guess back to CAO Williams. So just so I'm clear on this, we're going to spend $100,000 on looking at a design that we know the whole intersection is failing. Why wouldn't we just put the $100,000 towards lighting to begin with? Because we know that intersection is busy. It's always going to be busy, and not unless we decide we're going to redesign and remove some housing along there. Would it not be better just to put lights there right off the get-go?
Thanks for the question. Through the chair, more of Director Page's realm, but I'll start and you can tell me how wrong I am. $100,000 is at the higher end, but it's not just for a study. It would do preliminary engineering, kind of that groundwork of what's required, including traffic volumes, current and projected. It's pretty important to design anything, such as traffic lights, into future volumes. But also when it comes to traffic lights, it's not just as simple as putting up lights. There's a lot of other infrastructure with traffic lights, and they affect things like roads and sidewalks. And there might be the requirement, land availability issues there as well. So looking at all the options. So we don't expect the study to cost $100,000, but to preliminary engineer a future solution there as well. So.
Thank you. I think we can move on.
That was my presentation for today.
Thank you, Director Linderman. We'll move, and that'll be with Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Excuse me. I make the motion that the spring budget adjustments be received for information and be brought back to a regular council meeting for approval.
Thank you, and can I get a vote? And that is unanimous. Thank you. Now we move on to our first point of business, 4.1, infrastructure policies, and this will be presented by Director Pedro.
Perfect. Thank you. So we, as per the policy and procedure review schedule, have sort of the last four council policies and procedures are being presented here, were the ones outstanding on our list to be reviewed. And so we have done our review, as council will note in the package, 701 C and P and 704 C were relatively minor adjustments, mostly just putting them on new templates and some minor grammatical corrections there. 704P, which is a civic addressing policy, that one underwent quite a few larger updates. But that one brings it in line with departmental structure, which was outdated in the previous procedure, and shifting away to just MPE and more legislative updates there. So nothing substantial, but certainly needed updating. So happy to take any questions.
Councillor Taylor?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cook, and through you to Director Pedro. With the policy 704P, that we're, if I understand it correctly, we're delegating the naming of roads to administration. I kind of want to know where administration's preference is on naming the roads. With there seems to be like the themed approach, like with the Highlands, there's Coots, Ullery, Ware, or in places like the Vistas, it's a more alliterative approach with Viceroy, Vantage, Vincent. And reading through the policy, it seems like neither of those approaches is really leaned on one way or the other. I'm just kind of curious where your preferences are, because I certainly have preferences on that.
For sure. No, it's a fair question. One that I'm pretty sure every council I've worked with has asked me at some point. It's always one of those things that is interesting to most people. They like to have an interest in what the road names are. That being said, 704P, Section 4 does outline what our preferences are. So I'll read it out loud. Under road identification, it does say that name designations for roads are discouraged, with preference given to numerical road numbering system. Now, there is always nuance to new developments, and there is stipulations to work with other naming conventions. However, generally speaking, we treat the town as less. So if there is an adjacent road, whether it's an avenue or a street that does tie into the new road, number now does change on a developer if it does go to the something I'd say that's quite a few years. However, there is wording in the procedure that discourages like names because it does create some confusion. So it is all outlined in the procedure.
Supplemental?
I took that to mean like in disparate areas to avoid names that rhyme or sound similarly. And also, I understand that you do want to sway towards more numbering with the grid system. I was just, the question is more when names are going to be done, are they going to be themed or alliterative, I suppose is the quickest way to put that.
Right. More simple answer, more themed, depending on the area. More themed, depending on the area.
Councillor Overwater?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cook. Just on the first policy, let me bring it up here. It's 701C. I did send in a note to Ms. McKinnon regarding a few spelling grammatical errors that possibly when it's brought back that there was several errors could be corrected. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we'll move to the motion. Mayor Daley.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cook. I move the council accepts as presented the requested policies and request policies 701C, encroachment agreements, 704C, civic addressing policy, to be brought back to a future council meeting for final approval.
Thank you, and can I get a vote? And that is unanimous. Excellent. Moving on to 4.2, Community Services Policy. I understand Director Lapointe is not here today, so I'll be moving this to CAO Williams for presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. In Director LaPointe's stead, Director Andrew is going to lead council through these next couple items, which are mostly in community services realm, but some of the primary changes actually involve protective services as well. And if more parks-related questions comes up, we have to Justin's right, our park supervisor shall be here to answer more detailed questions. Justin, over to you.
Thank you, through the chair. So the 902C green space maintenance policy, you'll see that it's been marked up with a substantial number of changes. The premise of this was that it looks a bit messy as it is, but the whole piece is that you wanted to demonstrate the modifications to the existing policy. Most of it was a lot of housekeeping work, clarification on terms and conditions. There have been conversations of updating the language and the service standards that have been put upon community services with level of service discussions that have happened in the last year. Again, and how it ties to protective services is that one of the biggest issues that we had with some of these policies and our bylaws were the enforceability, just simply with the legal loopholes and contradictions that were in these policies. So large effort was taken to revamp and to revise to try to narrow those windows and create a clearer, more functional document for community services to utilize, and then protective services to enforce if need be. With that, I won't say much more other than entertain questions. And again, like I say, we have our resident expert here to speak to this specifically.
And Councillor Overwater?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cook. Just throughout the document, when we talk about the naturalization, I know this is a little topic for me, but when you talk about putting something to naturalization, does that mean that you're going to redo it? So it's just naturalization to me just does not mean weeds growing. Naturalization means that we're putting it back to grasses or plants that would naturally grow in that area. Is that what you mean when you talk about naturalization? Or you're just going to let it go to weeds? That won't be acceptable to me.
In the document, we just spoke to sort of the beginning stages of naturalization. It didn't go into like step by step of what it looks like. Our website speaks to that. Like if council wanted, they can put in the money sort of to make those changes to truly naturalize spaces. But in this policy, we just put in like a naturalized space will be maintained mainly for like safety and invasive weed mitigation and for the ecological benefits of the space.
And supplemental?
Yes, supplemental. So going forward then, would we be looking at gradually putting so much money into making it naturalized versus, doing the whole town at once? I understand we can't do that. That's just exorbitant amount of money. But can we do that gradually? Is that something that is in your purview to start doing?
I think CEO Williams, correct me if I'm wrong, but we were going to bring forward the cost of naturalizing, truly naturalizing spaces, and I can't speak for sure if it ended up getting to you guys or if it stopped prior to.
Yeah, and through the chair, there's no plans to conduct a full-blown naturalization of any area in Olds right now, like to the extent that would, say, include adding new soils, plants, fescue, rototilling, all of that stuff. Where we ended last season was at the initial naturalization list, which not an exact precise figure, but let's say it encompassed 2 acres. We reduced a bit more than 50% of that overall initial area, and now we're down to I would say a very small amount. Council in your 2026 budget adjudication did fund 2 additional summer students for the Parks Department to let us keep a level of service in the more controversial areas. But other areas, there's no plans for naturalization. Continued no-mow approach in the lower impact areas, as we call them, but the issues that Councillor Arvard, I'm sure you're thinking of right now, are the locations. Those will be mowed on a schedule based on council's budgets provided, but no plans for naturalization at this time. That would be a council service level and budget directed decision.
To Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through you to generically the administrative folks. I know we have a lot passionate residents around the beautification of our town and what it looks like in the green spaces and maintenance, and specifically, well, not specifically, but as well with dandelions and that sort of thing. Can you just remind, I have to discipline myself, policy versus service level, but can you talk a little bit about the pesticide application, the herbicide, sports fields, managed fields versus I'll call the islands in various areas, right? And I don't think we are pursuing spraying herbicide in some areas of the green space, but I appreciate that clarity. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Through the chair, I'll provide the generic answer, and if you need more detail, Shelby can provide you with that. The town is required by provincial legislation to spray for noxious and prohibited weeds, and we do that anywhere in town regardless, and we do budget for that. We don't budget for what we generally refer to as nuisance weeds, dandelions, crabgrass, most versions of foxtail we see around here, for instance. Sports fields are a different beast. Those are in some version of turf, and if we don't control the weeds here, we get a more difficult to maintain and lower quality product. So those still get sprayed as well as part of our service level. But where we see the most I would say, complaints come through our system is from residents and dandelions, and foxtail as well, which is the non-prohibited noxious side of foxtail. You know, there's several different kinds. Shelby, anything to add on that front?
Thank you. I would add that we don't actually spray everywhere with noxious weeds. Mechanical control is another acceptable way to deal with noxious weeds, so as long as they're not going to seed. So you will see some in certain areas, but as long as we're mowing those places on a regular basis, as we've been maintaining currently, then that's okay. There have been some spots in town where they've gotten, out of control for us that we will spray when it's, not mechanically feasible anymore. So, but everything else is right, yeah. The sports fields are our highest priority.
Definitely a supplemental, yeah, and more a comment, but that's exactly where I was going, right? With the islands, the pathway green spaces, and the dandelions, that sort of thing, and the comment, and again, I'm trying to be disciplined, service level versus the policy, but residents have said, hey, if we could mow more frequently in dandelion season, whenever dandelion season is, I'm not sure, but if we could mow more frequently then, that would certainly help the proliferation of the dandelion and the fuzz and everything. But we also have to be sensitive to the bees, so there's a fine balance there. But yeah, we have heard, and I guess that'll be part of service level discussions through the spring and summer and beyond around where's that happy balance with service level dandelion proliferation and beautification. Thank you.
Sorry if I can jump in quickly there too, just to, as an aside, with our citywide system and things like our AVL software, we're able to much better judge now than any time before what it actually takes to, say, mow the entire town, or how much traction on a 8-hour summer day does one mower make. So I think when the next service level comes up, council will have a better understanding. We all will have a better understanding of what those inputs and outputs look like, and then you throw in factors like sometimes it rains all of May and gets up to 30 degrees on June 1st, and everything grows at the same time. But can't budget for that. But it's a conversation that will continue long past us being here, and look forward to it again.
All right, thank you. To Councillor Glatz.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cook, and through you to either C.O. Williams or to Ms. Dizal. And I apologize for not going on the webpage. I try to typically do my homework before a meeting, and I did not this time. But under our webpage where we talk about mowing and naturalization and such, do we have a list or some kind of descriptions about what we call noxious, or I call them obnoxious weeds? Something that so people are aware of what we can and will deal with as compared to what we just typically don't budget for or won't be dealing with?
Our website does link to the noxious weeds, Alberta regulated. So.
Thank you. And again, I apologize for not looking at that, but maybe for people watching the meeting, they will now be aware they can also find that information out. Thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And through you to, again, the administration there. Just like we referenced in there, kind of more so around tree and tree maintenance, tree trimming and so on, and linking in with horticultural experts, I guess even for the green space. But just wondering, where and who are those horticultural experts? If they're not in-house, are they with the college? Do we leverage that relationship and partnership? Are they third-party entities or a combination of anything and everything? Thank you.
We're actually very lucky to have a certified horticulturalist and an ISA certified arborist on staff. So we're golden.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. I will look for a motion. Councillor Krush.
I make the motion that the committee accepts the Green Spaces Policy 902C as presented and request it come to a future council meeting for consideration.
Thank you. And can I get a vote? And that is unanimous. Moving on, we have item 4.3, public open spaces, and that will be going to C.O. Williams for presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And once again, Director Andrews is going to lead this topic.
Thank you. And so in the cover sheet, we talk about that this public open space bylaw moves to modernize 3 existing bylaws, which would be the public places bylaw, parks campground bylaw, and the public places amendment bylaw. So we would be looking to repeal those 3 and replace it with this one, which again is a little more modern and updated as far as with relevant fines and enforcement standards and clear language for users to facilitate the open spaces. So again, the whole premise on this is a cleaner mock-up of the actual bylaw. And again, we've standardized the language in this, which would be similar to the CSB and other bylaws that we've brought forward in years past, such as the animal bylaw, fire bylaw, things like that. Again, some of the housekeeping pieces with these bylaws is removing outdated references or links to other bylaws that are either no longer in place or it's not relevant information. We tried to make this very flexible for users, but we also put parameters in place that helps law enforcement utilize this as a tool for things like, if you had patrons in a public space causing disturbances at night, things like that. An example I would give is that, we have a public space closure from 12 a.m. to 5 a.m. Is it because we don't want people in the parks at that time? No, it's not that we're actively pursuing that, but if a group of individuals is up to no good in a park at that time, well then now there's a tool that law enforcement can utilize to mitigate that situation and move them along. So we are seeing that the RCMP are utilizing our municipal bylaws more frequently in managing these problem situations, and they can do so without using the heavy hand of federal criminal code type occurrences as opposed to our own municipal bylaws, which we're actually seeing a fairly high rate of compliance and or payment when issued. So it's just a change in the methodology and the tools to attain kind of what everybody would like in the community. So with that, we're open to any questions.
Councillor Overwater?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cook. I see in the previous slides, we had the red lined out. This one, we don't have any of what was before. We just have the names of what they were. Are you able to, when you bring that forward for us to actually vote on, are you able to bring that forward, what we're actually getting rid of and what we're going to propose? Well, this is what we're proposing, but...
Yeah, we can certainly provide the other three bylaws. Again, why there's no markup on this is literally because this creation was completely new. So there's nothing to compare it other than the three previous bylaws. So, yeah, right. Yeah, the links are on the front cover page of this to the existing bylaws. But we can certainly talk about or look at providing a generalized change in the focus if that's what council's direction is, for sure.
Thank you. And to Councillor Crush.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cook, and through you to whomever may answer this question. Typically in the past, I mean, I'm assuming we're not patrolling these areas in the middle of the night. Is it mostly complaint-based that something would need to be enforced? That's my question. Thank you.
Yes, that's correct. Typically, it's responding. There are times that the RCMP do patrol parks in odd hours, but again, yeah, it's usually the phone-based complaints from residents with activity reported that would initiate action.
And Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through you to Director Andrew. Can you talk a little bit about bylaw, specifically camping, and specifically events, Rotary Park, OR Hedges, bald fields, and overflow camping there, and how that whole enforcement would look like? Again, I'm thinking, Canada Day, when there are events going on, how would we approach that? Because we want to attract people. Obviously, out at Rotary Park, other than a vast amount of cement, there's no camping there. So how would we approach that? How would potential people that want to pull up a trailer and set up for the weekend work that? And I know it's always awkward, but is there wiggle room in those cases? Thank you.
Yes, through the chair, there are provisions in place, and we did exercise those last season. Where there were ball tournaments at Rotary Park, and there was a special application made to allow for a designated camping area, and we're happy to oblige to that. It's pretty simple. We obviously don't want damage done to the infrastructure in doing what they're doing. We don't want to create an undue hazard, and we also don't want to give up all the parking. So it's simply saying that here's a cordoned off area. The parks staff were more than accommodating to put up barricades to say, here's the designated camping area. You can have extra garbage cans there. The only use of outdoor fire pits would be like propane fired ones. And from what I heard from Protective Services, we were involved in the issuance of that permit, that everybody was happy and it worked out quite well. So yeah, same thing with OR Hedges Park, is that we know that there's the green space there that does get frequently used for camping for events there. And again, it's the same premise as we're happy to work with those user groups to have an enjoyable time. We also don't want to take away from the OR Hedges campground, so we don't want to promote that everybody parks in a cement parking lot when you have a beautiful campground that's very reasonable. But those are conversations that are had with them as well. And the biggest premise for us is the camping that we're trying to keep under control is the one-ofs, where we don't want individual tents being thrown up in playgrounds and parks in random spots because it's a nice spot to camp. So we're just trying to regulate the generalized activity that we're not open to random camping, but user groups and things, there are opportunity we can make that better.
Well, thank you very much, Director Andrew. Can I get a motion? Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cook. I move that the committee accept the Public Open Space Bylaw 2026-09 as presented and directed to be brought to a future council meeting for consideration.
Excellent, thank you. And can I get a vote? And that is unanimous. Now we are moving on to item 4.4, Policy and Procedure 2026 to 2029 Review Schedule, and that will be presented by Legislative Clerk McKinnon.
I'll take that one on behalf of Marcy.
To CAO Williams, thank you.
We're basically the same person at this point, though. As terrifying as that sounds. So this is a pretty simple one. This is a schedule just for council's information of how we currently project policies to be brought to you. Director Pedro led us off this inaugural voyage, and over the next 3.5 years, it is sorted by departments, so it's not quite chronological in the same way, but I think you get the idea. This is how we perceive the policies going. Now, obviously, it may change a little bit from here to there, but that being said, it doesn't speak to new policies that administration may recommend or council may wish to see brought forward. And if at any time council feels that a certain policy requires, let's say, immediate review by council, that's totally within council's purview to request that to come forward sooner, for example. But it's based on your policy on policies. You are to review each policy in every council term, and this is how we project seeing it happen. Just for information at this point, but happy to take any questions on the process or anything within it.
Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, through you to the CAO. So we have the schedule, which is fine, and I have no issues with that. But at any point in time, council, for any reason, can request a policy, jump this queue, this format, and ask to have it brought forward, right? Like, there is latitude, or no? Thank you.
Yep, and through the chair, absolutely. Yes, council can, through simple motion, request that happen. Oftentimes administration will recommend that as well. If council, let's say, budget direction or policy or resolution contradicts a policy, for instance. We saw it most recently probably on a bylaw in the East Olds area structure plan, where now we have to review that based on some previous land use decisions there. But yeah, it's totally within council's purview to request a change outside of the schedule.
Councillor Krush?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cook, and through you to CA Williams. Do you foresee any drastic changes that are going to have to take place to any policies or procedures with new legislation coming down from the Alberta government?
Very good question. And with Bill 28, it is on the order paper right now in the legislature. So assuming it does get passed and receives royal assent, I think we'll need a new policy on natural person power reporting, on compensation disclosure, and maybe a couple other things as well. On this list right now, one thing that is outstanding is I think Marcy and I are discussing the procedural bylaw being the best home for it, or an update to the existing communications policy. The code of conduct bylaws that were struck down by the province for every municipality last year, it had a small section in there on just defining the role of the mayor as spokesperson and council's role in that. So we're in a gray area right now for that, and so we think we'll bring forward that in the procedural bylaw. Seems to be the winning idea at the moment, but that's a problem for next week or next month, soon. But yes, with Bill 28, certainly there will be more. And also with, I should say, the Code of Conduct provincial code of conduct, I didn't get great understanding yet if a policy required or if the province is just going to dictate that this is the MGA code of conduct as well. But I'm assuming it's going to be the latter. So certainly at least two policies will be coming out of that that bill.
My understanding was that with provincial policy in place, that overrides municipal policy anyways. So if a province creates that ruling, is it required that we make our bylaws for it then?
A good question. Not necessarily. So the examples I used and how we've started to talk about this, even though it's only a few days old, if I take the natural person powers, that every time the CAO exercises a natural person power outside of some pre-selected caveats that are excluded under the draft legislation, council has to develop a process on how I report that to you. It has, I believe it leaves it open. So for example, council can just say comes to the next council meeting or within 14 days. Those are your options. I think it's just good paper makes good friends. So that's leaving the window open for council to develop a policy on that, how you want me to report, let's say when I sign a contract to council. So, we'll wait till we see what Bill 28 says and the timelines for things like that. And I think staff compensation will be relatively prescriptive, but I think just so it meets council's expectations. Publicly displayed can mean generally the website, but we have some ideas on how we can make it even broader, but provide even more and better context to the public around how municipal compensation works, going from our comparator groups to our third-party surveys to our grids and council's targets. So, and I think that's probably better sorted out in the council policy, but again, early days yet.
Thank you. Councillor Blatz, can you make a motion?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cook. I move that the committee accept the policy and procedure 2026 to 2029 review schedule as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Blatz. Can I get a vote? And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. That concludes our agenda for today. If there is no objections, I will adjourn the meeting. And we are adjourned at 2:32 p.m.